Russia has existed for nearly 4 centuries in its current form, more or less, and it put into position a kind of strategic stability within the country that is fairly durable. Now, the Putin government is the successor of a coup that happened in the Soviet Union in 1982. At that point, in 1982, the KGB basically overthrew the other factions within the Soviet ruling coalition within the Communist Party. And so Andropov, Chernomyrdin, and Gorbachev were all heirs to that legacy, and Putin is the inheritor of that legacy. Now, you combine that concentration of power with the collapse of the educational system in the Soviet system around 1986, with the country's demographic collapse, and it means that the total elite throughout the entire Russian system is only about 130 people, and Putin has had 23 years to basically purge it down to the people that he feels he can trust. So if Putin were to slip in the shower and fall into some duct tape and sit in a chair and throw himself into a pool, we probably wouldn't have any serious policy changes because everybody who's left is more or less on the same page. Okay, so with an elite that is that concentrated and that small, the capacity to manage the entire system is limited. Now, this isn't quite as bad as it is in China. I mean, China's a one-man show now, and even if Xi Jinping were the smartest person on the planet, he still wouldn't be able to micromanage everything in the system, and that's why we're seeing the policy ossification and cracks forming throughout the entire Chinese system. That's not that bad in Russia, but Putin has had to reach out to manage this system by allying with other factions. At one point, there was a bunch of technocrats like the former Finance Minister Kudrin, but more reliably, he's partnered with organized crime. This is one of the reasons why the Russians have proven to be so troubled in cyberspace until very recently. So you've got this concentration of power, which urges corruption, that is partnered with organized crime, which loves corruption. And as a result, the whole system is cracking apart. Putin himself, because of the concentration, has sharply limited who has access to him simply because there aren't a lot of people to choose from. So he has an inner circle of about 6 people, 3 of whom are absolutely incompetent, like the defense minister Shoigu, who's one of his old buddies back from East Berlin. In terms of the people that are competent, every country is going to have to come up with their own solution. Every country basically has 3 paths to choose from. Number 1, you kind of glom on to a country where this isn't a big deal. So in the case of Mexico, you obviously partner with the United States. The Japanese, for example, have decided that that's the way to go. And they cut a deal with both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. The Japanese are the only country to pull that off so far, and they are now part of the inner circle of the American strategic network. Second, you can find a way to go it alone. Maybe you don't need the allies. Maybe what you need is close and you can do kind of a neo-imperial system. I can see the French doing this. I can see the Turks doing this. Option 3 is you just figure out how to go without.
Russians are no longer enjoying a 10 or 20 to 1 artillery ratio. It's something much more close to even. So we've already had some reports that some of the draftees have gotten 1 day of instruction and then were shipped off to the front and have already charged into the Ukrainian lines and gotten massacred almost to a man. How reliable those reports are at this point, it's a war zone and it's Russia, so we really don't know, but it does kind of fit the historical pattern. Second, there's another aspect to the revolution and how it has empowered the individual. It's not just about tanks, it's about passenger cars. People are a little bit harder to corral in the industrial age than they were in the pre-industrial age. So when you want to go and draft someone, and if you've got a car and you don't want to go into the army, especially if you're just going to be used as cannon fodder, you run. And so we've got those traffic jams at the border. And even if you're just in your car going from city to city, it makes it a little bit more difficult for the Russian authorities to find you.
Figure the Europeans can maybe disrupt half of that if they really want to. But we're looking at the single largest removal of crude from the market ever. And in proportional terms, it's going to have a shock somewhat similar to World War II. And that assumes that there are no downstream effects anywhere. Because we have insurance companies not doing it, shipping companies not doing it, dock workers not doing it, and now Halliburton, Baker Hughes, and Schlumberger have pulled out, and they do the technical work that makes a lot of this possible. All the super majors are gone. We even have a couple of major projects out in Sakhalin that are probably just going to die because the Russians can't make those projects work by themselves. Most of the oil and gas out of that goes to China. So we're actually looking at an environment where the Chinese see reduced flows rather than increased, as Russia is just melon scooped out of the market. I would say there are two kind of main threads here. The first one is at the end of World War II, the Americans changed how the world worked. We created free trade and globalization and told everyone that could participate in any market anywhere without military escort. They could access our market if in exchange they formed an alliance with us against the Soviets. We bought an alliance, and we guaranteed as part of that alliance their energy flows. So the primary reason that the US has been so bogged down in the Middle East for so long was because we had to in order to keep our alliance fueled.